Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on this webinar. We're going to explore the new Brightpearl functionality of landed costs in this, which is guiding a few attendees through the login process. So bear with us for one more minute and we can make a start. Okay, great. So for those who have just joined us, welcome to this Brightpearl webinar on landed costs. Again, all attendees are on mute, but we do have a dedicated time at the end of the demo for some questions. So feel free to use the comments box to ask these at any time. So, by way of an agenda, what we're going to cover today is the concept of landed costs and what it is that we mean when we say it. We're also going to explain why the introduction of this new functionality is such a good thing and why we built it. We're then going into a Brightpearl account with landed cost functionality to show you just how easy it is to use. We then have Q&A for any questions we haven't covered off in-app, and I'll introduce Jen Cook, our product manager. Okay, so first things first, what is it that we mean by landed costs? This, what you can see on your screen now, is the best description of landed costs, and there's a lot more information on our release notes. Some examples of how our beta customers have used landed costs so far include hiring a shipping container, the cost of transporting that container, or insuring the goods during transit, and any duties or taxes payable at the destination. So our customers wanted to see these costs reflected in their products and accounting, and this module has been built to satisfy that requirement. So essentially, landed costs is for you if you have additional costs incurred on the purchase of goods or you're importing goods from abroad. So why should you care? What is the value of landed costs in this way? Well, there are four main reasons. So firstly, it allows you to calculate the profit you make on every item. So you can get a better idea of how well your business is performing. It also allows you to set prices that are profitable for a given product because you can see the true cost, which is really easy to miss, especially if you've got a particularly large portfolio of products. So it also allows me to identify potential savings in the supply chain and cut my costs accordingly, because you can see the different costs involved in the purchase of an item, which is going to further streamline your business. So finally, you can correctly account for landed costs for more accurate financial reports. Okay, so we're about to dive into a Brightpearl account to view the landed costs functionality. As Brightpearl users, you'll probably notice that the account is quite sparse, and that's deliberate so that you can see the effect of the process on the accounting. And hopefully that's going to make it easier to concentrate on the relevant bits. Great. So this is a screen that's going to be relatively new to most of you. This is my allocate landed cost screen, and I can find this under purchases, as you can see here. There are a number of different places that I can do this depending on my workflow. So I can do it directly from an order or batch select from the recent purchase order list. We've made it really flexible so you can start that from a number of different locations. So I'm going to allocate my landed costs to an order I made earlier. The first thing I need to do is search for the purchase order rows. So under filters, I can search for multiple order IDs, or I can enter several separated by a comma, which is new functionality for this module. So I'm going to enter my purchase order ID for a standard red t-shirt. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm doing this on a single order, but the process is really flexible and I can allocate landed costs across multiple rows and across multiple orders. At this stage, I should point out we don't have a unit adjustment or a total adjustment or a new landed price yet. So this brings me to a new screen so I can select my variables in the process. I have the option to distribute my landed cost by volume, by weight, by length or quantity. I'm going to select quantity. I also have an account code. I'm going to use the default for landed costs, but I may have others to set up to factor in different types of landed costs. I'm going to use my base currency for this. If I want to use another, I can enter the exchange rate. I need to also select which supplier it is I'm referring to. So in this case, this is for shipping. So I'm going to select the Mediterranean Shipping Company. The reference for this landed cost might be the invoice from the supplier. So I'm just going to come up with shipping 1009. And the amount is the price that I pay for the shipping in the first place. So let's make it nice and easy. I'll say £100 for that. I'll get to review these before they're committed. I can hit allocate. So what we've got now is we can see that we've got a number in the unit adjustment, we've got a total adjustment and a new landed price. that Brightpearl has actually calculated for these items. If you're happy, then you can click confirm to commit to those figures. Great, and we can see that my landed costs have now been allocated. So Brightpearl has saved those landed costs, and we're brought back to a list of the same items, ready and selected for us to allocate more landed costs if we need to. So what I'm going to do now is receive the goods on this purchase order. So I'm going to go to purchases, recent purchase orders, and then I'm going to go ahead and receive the inventory for this. So what you can see here, we've got the original cost, the landed cost, and we can see the total value going into stock. I'm going to go ahead and click submit. While I'm here, I'm going to receive the invoice and enter a supplier invoice reference. So I'm going to take a look at my accounting now and see how this has actually affected my general ledger. So you can see here that we've actually accounted for landed costs, and we can see the value of the stock has been uplifted by the value of those landed costs. So that means it's included on the balance sheet as an asset. If I go to my inventory detail report now, again we have landed costs and we have the value in stock. I created a sales order for my product with landed costs earlier, so I'm going to go ahead and process that next. So I'm going to fulfill this and mark it as shipped. And then I'm going to go ahead and invoice the order. So I'm going to take a look at sales by product now and see how Brightpearl actually records these transactions. So I need to look for the item that it is I've been selling, which in this case is a red t-shirt. So this is my sales analysis report, and we can see that the cost here includes those landed costs. And that's the cost of goods sold, which has also hit the accounting, and it means the profit is more accurate. And this is going to be reflected in my profit and loss report. Okay, now let's say that the invoice for the shipping has arrived and we actually want to enter a bill for it. I need to enter my supplier details now, including the nominal code and the landed cost reference. First, I'm going to select my supplier, which is the Mediterranean Shipping Company again. I need to find out my landed cost reference that I can get from my landed cost report. I've just put it in here for the sake of speed. So I need to make sure I have the appropriate nominal code as well. And that will be landed costs. And the value, of course, of the shipment itself. I'm going to go ahead and enter that as a bill. Great, so now I've entered my bill and I'm going to go to my landed cost report. I can see that my items have been received and they've been invoiced, so we know no further changes or accounting are going to happen. So this means we're now ready to reconcile the accounting. By clicking on the account code, we get a list of all the accounting entries which have been made related to this landed costs. When you're happy that the accounting balances, we can go back and we can mark this landed cost as reconciled. Right, so that brings me to the end of this quite high level demo of landed costs. Different business models are of course going to be using this in very different ways, and we've made the workflows flexible enough to suit as many as we can. So we're going to take a quick 1 minute break so we can set up our equipment for the Q&A. So do stay on the line and we'll get to answering your questions. I'm going to introduce Jen Cook, our product manager. Okay, thanks for bearing with us there, folks. We've got Jen Cook, our product manager, with us now.
Hiya, hello.
And she's here to help me answer some of your questions on landed costs. So we got a first one here from Annie. So we often pay shipping costs and customs charges. Can these both go in as landed costs and be paid as bills?
Yes, you can enter both of those things as landed costs on the same items. You'd repeat the process twice, once for each charge, and then enter each as a separate bill against those suppliers to be paid.
Cool, awesome. We got a question from Matt as well. Is there a way to enter the landed costs within the purchase order?
Yeah, so the way Joe demonstrated was starting directly within the workflow from going via the purchases menu. You can access that workflow from within the purchase order. So although you won't be working actually within the order itself, you can directly from the order navigate into the workflow with all of the rows selected, ready to allocate the landed costs. So you can do that quite smoothly from the order itself.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got a question here from Mark Nichols. What happens when entering the landed costs if your shipping price is in a different currency to your supplier currency? So, for example, they import cribs from China that are priced in US dollars. However, our shipping company is based in the UK and charges in pounds. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, that's no problem at all. So the currency of the purchase order is completely separate from the landed cost to deal with this exact scenario. So you can have absolutely any currency, even the PO could be in a different currency with its own exchange rate. So yeah, when you're working through the landed cost process, it will be converting any foreign currency you enter into your base currency for the accounting of the inventory. So it all comes into your base currency in the end. So each order, the order can have its own exchange rate and the landed cost will have its own exchange rate.
Excellent. So we've got a question from Andrew Cross. Can you apply landed costs after receiving the goods?
You can. So we've made the feature work with allocating landed costs to the items on order, which you haven't yet received, as we saw Joe demonstrated, or you can do it after they've been received, as long as they're still in stock. So the only thing is, if they have been sold, there's no longer a chance to allocate the landed cost because they've gone through the inventory system, through sales, and all of the accounting has been done. So the cost of sales has been posted for that already.
Okay, there's a message here from Elaine as well. So I've been into my Brightpearl account on my break, and I can't see the landed costs link. Yeah, that's to be expected. So this hasn't been rolled out into a release yet. So the account that I've been using for this demonstration isn't what's rolled out to Brightpearl users yet. It will be in the future, but for the moment, you won't be able to see anything that I've shown you in this demo. It's coming shortly. Cool. So I've got a question from James as well. Can I allocate Amazon fees?
So yeah, that's an interesting question. Because for this process, we would not recommend allocating Amazon fees. So this process is looking at bringing items into stock. And your Amazon fee is a cost that actually happens after it's been sold. So you won't know what that is. We are aware that this is something people want, to be able to analyse the profit of items after the Amazon fee. But we see this as outside of the scope of this landed cost feature. But it is something that we will be looking at and hope to help with at some point.
Excellent. Okay, and we've got a question from Amy. Can I allocate landed costs from separate orders on the same shipment?
Yes. So you can have multiple POs, purchase orders, parts of orders in one shipment, different suppliers. It's flexible enough to allocate your landed cost across any rows from basically any orders you want.
Cool. So we've got a question from Carla as well. Can we apply an exchange rate to the product cost only or to the landed costs only? We usually pay product in a different currency than the landed costs. Could you talk about that for a sec, Jen?
Yeah. So the purchase order exchange rate is only for the purchase order, and so it won't affect the landed cost. So yes is the answer. So your product in a different currency will have its own exchange rate for its original and product cost than that of the landed cost, which is separate.
So there's a question here which I can probably field from James saying, you say this is coming soon. Do you have a release date? we do. It was in fact due to be out by now. There's been a couple of teething problems that we've wanted to iron out to make sure it's fully functioning. So we're hoping within the next few weeks it'll be ready to go. Cool. So we've got a question from Phil as well. Do we have plans to extend the functionality into reporting and into sold items as well?
These are certainly things that we wanted to tackle, and of course still open to. We haven't got it scheduled in just yet, so we're looking for people to give us feedback if it's really something that they would benefit from as part of the feature once you get started. So yes, it's something we'd like to do, but it's not as yet scheduled.
Cool. Okay. We've got a couple of questions to answer from our CAS forum as well. So we're going to break those out very shortly. So we've got a question from Andy, and this is by the CAS forum. Is this only for importing costs, or can I use the feature for domestic purchases as well?
Yeah, so we've talked at the beginning a bit about how this is for importing, because that's where you get lots of different costs incurred in terms of transporting those items across the sea or through via air. But that's not to say you can only use it if you're importing from abroad. Of course, you have costs incurred with domestic purchases as well. So yes, you can use this feature for even if you're not importing from abroad.
Cool. So we got another CAS question here from Lucy, and she's saying, what about sold items? So items that have already been sold within Brightpearl.
Yeah, so I've said that we don't handle sold items. So if you did want, if you're needing to put landed costs in for items that have already gone out of stock, then it needs to be posted directly to your cost of sales accounting, and it won't be reflected then on your reports. But for the individual items, it would just be a lump sum on your profit and loss.
Okay, so we got a question from Ben as well. This has just come in from this webinar. So when you have a landed cost of $1,000 that applies to 4 different purchase orders, does it spread the landed cost equally through the 4 purchase orders, so $250 each, or does it spread it out by units or weight?
So we've got the 4 options for distributing the cost, which is by weight of the individual item, by the quantity on the purchase order, by the value of the item, so that's the price on the purchase order, and the volume, which is based on the dimensions on the product. So no, there's no, unless you do the process multiple times across each purchase order separately, there's no way to make it precisely the same on each order with the process, with the options we've got. But you could split it out and do it 4 times if you've got 4 purchase orders that you want an equal amount spread across.
Cool, thanks Jen. Just collating some more questions now. We've got some more coming in. Okay, great. So we got another question from James. So would this be used as a bill of materials?
No, we do not recommend this feature as a solution replacement for bill of materials. We know that's something people are asking for, and it's something we've been looking at how that would work. And bill of materials has lots of rules around it in terms of the accounting, and this feature is designed specifically for landed costs, and it's not to comply with rules with bill of materials.
Okie dokie. And we've got a question from Lily as well, who's asking, will training be available? I can field that one. Yes, training will be available. As part of implementing landed cost, there's a small implementation set up, and training will be included in that. So yes, you will be able to be trained on landed costs. Okay, so there's another question here from Annie. We are often invoiced in bulk for dropship orders. There may be several customer orders, each worth its own shipping charge. These shipping charges will be on separate purchase orders, so the landed cost will be allocated per purchase order. Can we then put the full shipping charge through as one bill?
So this is an interesting question because it's around dropship orders. And so with landed costs, we've been talking about the shipping charge of actually bringing the stock into your warehouse. And with dropship, you're not bringing those goods to you. They're going directly from the supplier. So I'd be interested to find out and perhaps speak to you more about what you're looking for in terms of your dropship orders and what costs specifically you're talking about. So yeah, I'll take that one and get in touch to have a proper chat, I think.
Yeah, cool. So if it's okay with you, Annie, we'll park that one for now, but we will come back to it once we understand your workflow in a little bit more detail. Cool. So I think that's probably all the questions we've got. I can't see any more that have come in. Thanks, Annie. Okay, great. So if there are any more questions, we'll take a quick 1-minute break again just to collate some more questions, give you guys a chance to type something in if there's anything that you want to know that we haven't covered so far. So I'm going to hit mute for now. Stay with us. We'll collate some more questions. Thanks for bearing with us, everyone. So we've only had one more question come in, which is from Carrie, and he's asking, can you illustrate how to allocate landed costs to multiple and partial purchase orders? And how would you allocate those landed costs to only some line items on several purchase orders? So this is outside of my expertise, but this is something that Jen's happy to help with. So I'm going to hand over control to her now. Over to you, Jen.
Okay, so within the same workflow, allocate landed costs. We can search for all of those orders that you're looking for. So I'll just do it by bringing up something from a supplier Joe's been using. Which one should I use, Joe?
WWE is fine. It's probably got most of it.
Which one's that?
Scroll down.
This one. Cool. So that should bring up plenty of data. So that brings up purchase order rows. So here we can see all the different order numbers. If there were multiple items on each order, you would see them all split out. So it's each product that's on order. So you can pick and choose which ones you want to allocate the landed cost to. So I can choose this order. Obviously, if I had more rows, I could select which items you want. So it's a case of selecting the batches of items that you want and working through the same process. Alternatively, you can go via your recent purchase order list. Because on here, you might be splitting out your orders. So you might have custom fields you're doing for grouping shipments together, things like that, like a shipping reference. So you can use all the filters available here and select multiple orders from here as well and navigate into the process. So it brings you through with all the purchase order rows. So I have to excuse some of the data.
Cool. Okay. Well, hopefully that answers your question. Let's see what else we've got in here. Bear with us. We're just collating some more questions. We've had a quick flurry come in. Guys, we've had a couple come in for drop shipping. We're happy to take those offline, but it's probably out of scope for this kind of immediate webinar because there's a lot of kind of individual requirements around that. So if you want to PM us, or in fact we'll reach out to you with some suggestions as to how we go around that. So, question from Andrew: would you also include the import tax in the shipping cost?
So that's probably one for your accountant. I believe sometimes your tax might be included, other times not. So definitely speak to your accountant as to whether you should be allocating those as landed costs.
Okay, last question then from Alison. If we only received half of the units in a purchase order, how do we then allocate landed costs to only those units?
So if you've received half of the units, you wouldn't need to split it and allocate to only half. You can allocate it across all of them. Those that have been received and those you're still waiting for. So the ones you're still waiting for, it would remember what the uplift will be, so that when they do come into stock, that landed cost will automatically be accounted for those as well. So I don't see any reason why you would need to split the process and do half that are received and half that aren't. If you're talking about if you've had the items literally shipped in different shipments and have separate landed costs, then you do the process separately and you can split it out across the purchase order rows, so selecting which rows you want. And if you've got any more complicated scenarios that I've missed off there, we'd certainly like to hear about them. Yeah, that's a really good point. So if there is anything that you feel that we haven't covered off in this webinar, I think we're coming to the end of the questions now. Most of it is just a request about drop shipping and how we can work with that. As I say, we'll reach out to those individuals directly. But if there are any questions you have about landed costs,
further to this webinar, or you want to understand more about how it works, do let us know. You can reach us at success@brightpearl.com. We'll be happy to help. I think that probably brings us to the end then. As I say, most of the last minute questions we're coming in are just requests for callbacks, and we're happy to do that. So I guess all that's left to do is thanks everybody for attending. But hopefully you've learned a lot about the new landed cost functionality. And again, please feel free to send us an email to success@brightpearl.com if you have any further questions. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.